Hi everyone, in this video we're going to talk about 4 different ways, or actually 5 different ways to view a function. So you'll remember from the last definition, or the last video, that the definition is just a rule which assigns one number to exactly one other number. Not 2, not 3, not 4 numbers as an output. The video after this will talk about how you can tell if a function is truly a function or just a relation. But today I just want to give you some visual ways to get your hands on this. So remember our function from last time, which was the coin machine. The coin machine takes in dollar amounts and it spits out quarter amounts. So if you put in the number 1, you get out the number 4. If you put in the number 3, you get out the number 12. And so we decided that we could write this rule in the following way. Put in a number of dollars, get out 4 times that number in quarters. So that's the situation. We basically have just described this function in words. So more succinctly, the way that we could describe this one in words is just to say something like plug in a number, output is 4 times that number. So another way that we could describe this function is by using a table or taking a numerical approach. This is something that we did when we just talked about graphing equations, for example. So the way that we would do this with a table is we have our inputs, and these were dollar amounts, and our outputs we'll call y or f of x, really the same thing. And these are 4 times the input. These are the quarter amounts. So if I input $0, my output is 0 quarters. If I input $1, my output is 4 quarters. $2, output is 8. $3, output is 12. So that's all there is to it for the numerical approach. The key thing is just realizing that what we do to get from one column to the other is apply this function f. So we can write this as f of 0, and this as f of 1, because we plugged in f and we got out 4. Or we plugged in 1 into f and got out 4. So if we plug 2 into f, we get out 8. If we plug 3 into f, we get out 12. Another important way to visualize functions is as mappings. So all that means is on one side you have your inputs. So these could be a bunch of different numbers, 1, 3, 2, 0. On the other side, you have your outputs, and our outputs might be 4, 6, 8, 0, 12. And to visualize this as a mapping, you just draw an arrow from the input to its output. So when I plug in 1, I get out 4. When I plug in 0, I get out 0. When I plug in 2, I get out 8. When I plug in 3, I get out 12. Probably the most important way to visualize functions is as a graph. So since f of x is our output, think of it as y, just like before. So we have this expression, we're saying f of x equals 4 times x. So in other words, y equals 4x. This is just the equation of a line where m equals 4 and b equals 0. So we can graph this line. Since b equals 0, the y-intercept is there. And since m equals 4, then as I go over 1, I must go up 4. So that gives me another point. Oops, didn't graph that very well. Another way to get this graph is by using the table that we just constructed, like before. So I plug in 0, I get out 0, so I plot the point 0, 0. I plug in 1, I get out 4, so I plot the point 1, 4. I plug in 2, I get out 8, so I plot the point 2, 8. It should be up there. And that gives me my line. And finally is the algebraic approach, but we've already been using this. This says, write down the rule for your function in terms of the input. So if I input x, my output is 4 times x. So for example, if I want to know what's the output when the input is 1, I just plug 1 into the function. So I do f of 1. That's how we say this, f of 1. And that's going to be 4 times 1. F of 2, I just plug in 2. So that's going to be 4 times 2. And those are the 4 or 5 ways to visualize functions. In the next video, we'll talk about determining whether an equation or a graph or a table represents a function or just a relation. See you then.